Okay, so let's create again. Last time there was some syntax error. So let's try to create one table here. So I will say create table. Table name is employee, and then its column. First is identifier. So I will say employee ID. Okay, and the type of this column is say integer. Okay, then we have second column as a name, that is name of the employee. Okay, then its data type is varchar, and the length is 255. Then let's have date of birth, that is dob, and its data type is date. Then let's have salary, and data type is integer. Okay, let's create it. So my table has been created. So if I say show tables in this database, it will list all the databases, all the tables inside this database, that is JDBC test. Okay, let's try to understand the table. So we need to describe the table. Command is dsc employee table name, dsc table name. So it will show you the detail of table. So here there are four fields: id, name, date of birth, and salary, and the data type of each column. Right, fields are nothing but column here. If I map this table from the java, so in java you can say that employee is the object, so corresponding object is table here. Then each attribute inside that employee object, that is id, name, dob, salary, those are columns in this database, in this table. Okay, and null is s for all. It means that I can use null value for um, any column. Okay, so you can keep null for any column. Then we have default. There is nothing default here. All default are null. So let's now create one primary key. Primary key is the key which will help identifying a unique row. Okay. So if I mark a column as a primary key, so that is not null and unique value. So in that column, I can have only not null and unique value. I cannot have duplicate or null values. So in case of employee, every employee will have its own employee ID. In a company, there will be two employee may not cannot have uh, same employee ID. So employee ID can be a primary key here. So let's create one primary key on the ID column. So that is altered table. I'm altering the table. So that is alter table employee. Then we need to create one add primary key on column id. Okay, so here primary key has been created. If I again describe this table, you will see that null is no for id and key is primary here, and default is 0 because it is integer. So it will default as 0. Okay, so let's see if there is any data. Of course there is no data. So to get the data, the query is required select a star from. Star means I want all the columns from that table. So select a star from table name, that is employee. Here it is empty set. It means that there is no record. Okay, let's create another. So far we have understood what is a table, what is a column, and what is primary key. Let's create another table called department. So that is create table department. Okay, and let's have id. Okay, and for department id is primary key. So data type is integer, and let's put as primary key while creating the table itself. In the last example, we we had created the table and later we added primary key. So this time I'm adding the primary key. I'm creating the primary key while creating the table itself. We know that integer id is a integer data type, and that can act as a primary for department. So I say id integer, then primary key, then I have name of the department, and that is varchar, say 255. Okay, so one more table has been created, that is department, right? So here data type is very much database dependent. So in oracle I may have different data type. Say for integer I may have different data type. For string kind of data type, for string kind of fields I can have different data type. So data type syntax may vary from one database to another database. So in mysql it is for integer I'm using integer, for string I'm using varchar with given size. Okay, for date of birth I'm using date, right? So and for salary I'm using integer. So just to remember that data type is always a data type syntax is always database specific. Okay, but once you concepts are same from concepts are same on either database. So once you are creating a column, you have to have the data type. So data type syntax can vary from one database to another database. Okay, so now department table has been created. Let's describe it. DSC department, DSC. Okay, so here I have only ID, which is null no, and it is primary key. Okay, now I want to relate these tables because every employee will be part of a uh, department. So there should be some relationship between the employee and department. When you are in database, when one table is related to another table, there is a referential integrity concept comes into picture. So referential integrity is the concept where one table has one column which is a primary column in another table. Okay, so suppose for employee we need to create one column in employee table, that is department id. Okay, which is referencing to primary key, that is id in department table. Okay, so here we are achieving differential integrity between employee and department. Okay, so let's create one foreign key. So that key is called foreign key, where a column is referencing to the column of another table. So let's create one column first in employee table, that is department id. So to add a column we are altering the uh, table. So we have to use the command as alter, that is query alter table employee add column. Then we are adding here what we are adding department dept underscore id and it is integer. Okay, so my I have added one more column, so let's describe it. DSC department, so sorry, DSC employee. So here you can see that department ID is one integer. A new column has been added. Okay, now let's try to relate this column to uh, the ID column of department. So for that I need to create one foreign key. So again I will do alter table employee, because I am creating a foreign key inside the employee table on column department ID, which will reference to ID of department column. So alter table employee, add foreign key. The column I am using department dpt underscore ID. It references department on column ID. Right? So he said that alter table employee add foreign key, the column where I want to apply the foreign key, and where it references department and ID column of that department. So if I describe again employee table, you can see here department ID is key as it is a kind of a relationship key here. It is a foreign key here. Okay, what it will happen, what I'm going to achieve by doing this, it means that I every department, every employee, if I create a employee inside employee table, if I add a row inside employee table, I can provide the department ID only if I have that department ID in department table. Otherwise I cannot do. Okay, so so far whatever I have done, that is called data definition language, because I am creating the table, I am modifying the table, I am altering the table, I am dropping the table. How you can drop? Let's create one dummy table to see how we can drop it. So we will say create table, dummy table. Let's give just ID, because anyhow we are going to drop it, say integer. So I have created this table, it's not created. Okay, now it is. Oh, sorry. Create table, dummy table, ID, integer. Oh, yeah, it's already created. If you see here, it says that query OK and zero row affected. So it's already created. So let's see, let's say so tables. Yeah, here I have department and dummy table and employee. So let's drop table. You can say drop table and table name, that is dummy table. So now my table has been dropped. Similar way you can drop the whole database. You can drop whole database. So let's try to do some DML. So far whatever we have done, that is DDL, data definition language. Now let's try to do DML. DML is about data manipulation language, where you are going to insert the data and query the data, or delete the data or update the data.